let you know what the session's about. So we're looking at how to plan your summer so that you can have a successful personal statement. So what we're going to be exploring is the time that you take over the summer. What kind of things should you be doing during the summer holiday that will help you to have great information in your personal statement? So just before we get into that, I just want to introduce myself. So my name is Afua Kudom. I work as Head of Schools at Oxbridge Applications. I did law at Cambridge myself, and prior to this role I was also a secondary school teacher. So I've worked with students applying to university and doing their UCAS form, so I'm familiar with the process and probably some of the things that are going through your mind right now and some of the things that you're thinking, and hopefully this will be a useful session. So just before we go into the information, I just want to start by asking you a question. So the question is, how much do you already know about personal statements? And I might add an extra question, which is what would you like to get out of this session, just so that I know that we're covering the right things. So I know you probably haven't looked at it in a lot of detail, but just any information either about the structure or the content or how it's used, anything you know about personal statements. Who wants to be brave and kick us off? Yep.
It's more about talking about your experiences which you've had, showing that you're an all-rounded student, not necessarily just about your academia, but more about your experience with the subject that you're applying to, more than just academia, I'd say.
Yeah, so academia does play a huge role in the personal statement, and as you rightly say, it's about showing your wider experiences of that subject or that course, or maybe some of those topics outside of school. Excellent. Anybody else? Anything else you know about the personal statement?
Showing that you're motivated in your personal statement for the subject, not just the grades, but you've done further study about that subject personally.
Yep, excellent. And motivation is a really important word, which I'm going to come back to during this session. And in terms of what people usually want to get out of it, so what I've done is I've kind of looked at 3 different categories of things you should be doing over the summer and why they are important to the information that you include in your personal statement. But I thought it would just be good to get an idea of what you would like to leave this session with. So people usually want to know about the kind of structure in terms of what to put in a personal statement. So things that you're maybe interested in. Okay, so some of that we'll cover, and if we don't cover that, we can have questions at the end. Anything else that you would like to get from this session, just so I know I've tried to cover it?
Specific work plan.
Yep. Yep. Excellent, we'll cover that. Okay. Anything else?
How to structure your personal statement.
Yep, so how to structure it. And sometimes different people like different styles, so I don't want to just give you one particular style. I'll say these are the ways in which you can go about it. Okay, excellent. So hopefully that's covered, if not, questions at the end. So just to give you a bit of information, and you've come already prepared with pens, which is excellent, so hopefully taking lots of notes. So the main thing is, which you alluded to, which is the length. So it's 4,000 characters, which ends up roughly being about 500 words, and it's uploaded onto the UCAS website as part of your wider application. All of the universities will see exactly the same personal statement, and that's really important, especially if you are somebody who's applying for different courses at different universities. So for example, although I did law at Cambridge, I applied to lots of other universities. Some of them I applied for politics, some of them a combination of politics and sociology. So my personal statement had to be generally about social sciences, so that it wasn't biased towards one subject. The other thing to bear in mind is that for a lot of the universities, it's probably the only chance that you're going to get to sell yourself. Some universities interview, and definitely if you're applying for subjects like medicine, or if you're going for Oxford or Cambridge, you're likely to be interviewed, but a lot of universities don't. So for them, it's the only opportunity really to decide, is this person a good person for this course that I want to give a placement to? So that's just general information about the personal statement. 2 key questions that I'm going to keep on coming back to in this session. 2 things you should be answering in your personal statement. The first thing is, why me? Why me? It's really important. And then the second thing is, why this course? So throughout your personal statement, you're answering both of those questions, but because the space is limited, you've got to be really selective about what you include, and the information on there should always attempt to answer one of these two questions. So what I'm going to do now is look at the 3 different things that I think you should be doing over the summer, and then towards the end I'll talk a bit more in terms of structure and content. Okay, so what to include? This is just a general overview, regardless of the subject that you are going for. So write me over here, and I've underlined it, so key bit of information. What is your motivation? What is motivating you to apply for this course? And that may seem quite obvious, but for a lot of people, when I actually ask them, that personal motivation isn't there. And it may be because the school thinks that they should go for that course. Sorry to say that sometimes parents are maybe encouraging them to go for that course, and that personal motivation isn't there. And that's the first question that you should be asking yourself. What is my motivation? Why do I actually want to study this subject? Because once you answer that question, it's really easy to talk about all the other things in the personal statement. The other things that I will pick out, you don't always have to show links to your A-level subjects, but if you can make a direct link, then I would say that you should try to do that. But the other thing that I think is key is what you have done outside of school. So when we talk about different activities that you'll be doing over the summer, a lot of it will be focusing on, okay, this is what you're doing outside of school, and this is why it's important for your personal statement. And then the last thing that I would choose to pick out is, how is this relevant to your course? Because there's lots of information you can put in there. Some of it's interesting, but it's always got to be answering that second question, which is, do you remember? 2 questions that your personal statement. Okay, one was the first one. Why this course? So if the information isn't relevant to your course, take it out. There are other examples you can be using, which are probably more important. Okay, so that's just a general overview. Right, so 3 things I would encourage you to be doing over the summer. Some of this will probably be organised by the school anyway, and then the other bits are things that I encourage you to be doing independently. So the first thing is attending university open days. And I will add to that is not just open days, but any kind of masterclass or subject taster session. Different universities call them different things. But anything that gives you some kind of insight into exactly what it's like to study that course at university. And towards the end, I'll talk a bit more about the kind of things that you should be thinking about before going to those events. The second thing is further reading. And sometimes people going for sciences think, okay, if it's reading, then it's maybe the arts and humanities subjects. But actually, further reading is relevant, whatever course you are going for. And it's really important, especially if you're applying to the top universities, because they want to see what you have done outside of school, what you have read. And then the last thing is, I've called work experience and independent research, because one of the questions people ask is, what if I can't maybe organise any work experience? That's fine. There are other things that you can do to show subject interest, and I'll talk about what some of those things are and give you some examples. So what I want to move on to now is to show how you can demonstrate things like subject motivation and talking about these kind of things in your personal statement, and therefore what practical steps you should take. So how will your summer activities support writing of your personal statement? So if we take the first one, which is subject motivation, attending the open days will give you as much information as possible about that course. And I'm going to start asking a few questions to some of you, so hopefully you're ready to participate. So it will help you to know really what it's like to study that course at uni. So biochemistry, people often think about the mathematical side of a subject like that, or the biological side. But this person has attended an open day, and they're able to say on their personal statement, okay, it's not just the logical maths and problem solving that's interesting. I also realise that it involves a lot of philosophy and a lot of ethical issues. So I know that some of you were going for medicine. I think there are a few medics over here. Is that right? A couple of medics, yeah. So often people think about the biological side of medicine and the science side, which is great and important, but there's also the ethics involved in terms of being a doctor and ethical questions that you need to talk about. So what this person will then do is expand a bit more about how maybe attending an open day, talk them a bit more about the philosophical and the ethical dimensions of science. Yeah? So I'm going to take another subject. I didn't get round to you guys at the back, but maybe you could just say the subject you're going for.
Economics.
Okay, economics. So when you go to an open day, do you have in mind already the different topics that you're already interested in economics?
Yeah, such as like globalization and market analysis, interest rates and currency rates as well.
It was quite broad, but it's also quite loud. Okay, so globalization, things like interest rates, and I'm assuming that you're following current news stories as well. Yeah? So what you will do when you go to an open day is you can maybe explore those particular topics in more detail, but also widen your knowledge and your breadth in terms of understanding the other aspects. And then you can say, when I attended, give me an example of university.
LSE.
When I attended the LSE Open Day, one of the things that I discussed with the lecturer was, and then talk about it in that way. Yeah, so it shows, okay, they've actually taken the time to go to the open day. They can link it to the course. And they're showing, and that's another important phrase in your personal statement, you are showing and not telling, so you may want to make a note of that. So it's not just about listing information, so you don't just say, I went to all of these 10 different open days, but you maybe choose a couple of examples and say what you learned from those open days and how it links to your course. Okay, so that's the first thing, open days, taster sessions, masterclasses will help with subject motivation and interest. Can anyone think of another reason why open days and masterclasses may be important? Yeah?
Because you get to see the students who actually do that course, and you can kind of relate to them because they're of a similar age to you, and you can kind of see it more clearly rather than if you're just maybe with a university lecturer. It's not the same sort of experience. And I think it's also really important to find out specific information about certain universities because things are always changing.
Exactly. Excellent. You've got to remember, you could be going for the same course at lots of different universities, and what it's like to study that course varies from university to university. So use the students and the lecturers, I would say as well, the teachers, in as much depth as possible, ask as many questions, and as well as showing you whether you are motivated, it may help you to see, actually, I thought it was medicine, or I thought it was, let's say medicine. So you could say, I thought it was medicine, but actually I'm interested generally in biological sciences. So it may help you to see there's a similar course that is just as interesting, and I may prefer to do that. So use it as a time to help with your decisions as well. Because if that subject motivation is not there, if it comes from the heart, then it's going to show in your personal statement. Okay, any questions on this before I move on to the next example? No? Okay. Okay, so the second thing you should be doing during the summer, it's a great opportunity, 6, 7 weeks or so, to do lots of different activities. So taking part in activities outside of school, and they could be structured activities organised by other organisations, or they could be things that you do independently. But again, that helps to support your subject motivation beyond the school curriculum. Why do you think they want to see that you're doing stuff outside of school? Why is that so important to them? Yeah. Yeah, so it could be the characteristics that you're developing from that experience. And there's another thing that they've got in mind. Think about the point that I made at the beginning in terms of some universities may not interview, and they've got lots of different personal statements in front of them. How do you think things that you do outside of school may give you some kind of an advantage?
You do things differently from others. So certain things you may do, you could be, someone could be in a swimming club, and you could be in the RAF or in the UCF or something like that. That could differ from other people.
Exactly. So it's showing how you are unique and what makes you stand out as an individual. So remember, why me? So you're bringing things that the others don't have. So you may have exactly the same A-levels, you may have some similar experiences at school, but you're going the extra mile to show the additional things that you're doing, which is really important. So if we look at this as an example, so the second, one of the other things I said is that you need to, from think, not tell. Is that the phrase? Show and not tell. So when you're talking about your activities outside of school, you need to show why they link to your course. So this person could have just said, I attended this Introduction to Engineering course at the Johns Hopkins University, and just stopped there. But what's important is that they go on to explain what they learnt from that experience and how that is relevant to what they're going to study. So if they did it just up to there, they would just be telling and just giving a list. But they've shown why that was relevant. So these are the things that I did when that was there. These are the projects that I took part in. This is what I had to do. And then taking university lectures from different yet interconnected branches of engineering showed me how broad and multidisciplinary the subject is. So a really nice summary in terms of this is what I've learned from that experience, and again it's showing subject motivation. Yeah? So does anyone have any ideas of anything they plan to do over the summer? That's maybe an extracurricular activity. Don't worry if you haven't researched already, I know you're going to probably do that later on. But has anyone come across anything, any courses or anything taking place? Or have any ideas? No? Okay. If not, then that's something for you to look into and to research. Okay, work experience. So that came up earlier, and this is a question that people ask a lot. Do I always have to do work experience? Not necessarily. For some particular courses, it's really useful. So, for example, if you are going for medicine or dentistry or courses that are linked to some kind of career, it's good to try to get the work experience in those industries. But there are other ways in which you can show that subject interest and motivation without going to an actual placement. So, is anyone going for history or English or anything within that kind of bracket of subjects? Yeah, you were thinking of English. So this is a classics example. So it's not quite English, but it's within the same subject group. So this person went to work at the Archaeological Services, and they've spoken about how that experience was relevant to them going on to study classics. Yeah. So they said I was able to handle Roman artifacts, but also the placement helped me to gain an understanding of what it's like to go into careers linked to that course. So you could go on some kind of placement that links in some way to English. Do you have anything in mind? Or?
Not yet. I want to research and then try and find out.
Okay. And it's a bit harder for subjects like English because you can go into lots of different careers.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. Anyone else have any ideas for work experience already? And it can be things that you've looked into or things that you would like to do.
I'm doing banking, work experience at bank.
Okay, and how long is that for?
2 weeks.
And is it already organised?
Yes.
Okay, and is that going to be in July or August?
Most likely in August or July, most likely in June.
Okay, so what I would say with that is use it as an opportunity to ask as many questions as possible and think about how you can make it an interactive process. Yeah? Okay, anybody else have any ideas of work experience or wants to say what their subject is and work experience that may be relevant or linked to it? Happy to maybe give some ideas. So, remind me what your subject is?
Oh, dentistry.
Dentistry. Now, there's the obvious ones in terms of
dentist.
Yeah.
But perhaps maybe what would I do if I couldn't get work experience at dentist?
Mm-hmm.
What else should I do?
Okay, so have you looked into work experience at a dentist already?
It's been a bit tough to be honest. Maybe not necessarily rejecting me, but they haven't really come back to me. But yeah, no good luck at the moment.
Okay, so
Can I just come in on that? Just similarly, one of the reasons that a lot of kids can't get the experience at a dentist is because they don't have the insurance
yes,
to cover students.
yes,
So it's practically impossible
to actually
to
do
get
that.
the work experience. However, a lot of the universities are requesting, or, at least suggesting that kids do get work experience. So if you can't get the work experience in that particular setting, what do you do then?
Yeah, so what you might do, so an example that I came across is somebody who, instead of actually going to an actual work placement, they looked at a campaign that was linked to encouraging people to take care of their teeth a lot more and So there may be charities running campaigns that are linked to a topic or an issue similar to what you're interested in. So that's a good way. So sometimes charities have campaigns and you can volunteer at maybe some of those campaigns, so that's one example. You can think of maybe other departments or wards within hospitals where I think hospitals are more likely to take you on than a dentist, where you get some kind of experience. So if you're interested in working with children in particular, then another piece of experience that gives you insight into working with children and just working in that environment. So hospitals or primary care trusts that are local to you. I'm not sure about things like CellDoc because they're probably more independent and it may be difficult to get work experience with them. But I would say definitely charities or campaigns that are linked to something to do with your course would be an option. Yeah. Okay. Any other examples of topics that people are interested in? Or courses or subjects, and we can think about different kinds of placements. English, another one that may be useful. So I came across an example of someone applying to work with a TV company. So they were interested in history and they applied to work with, I think, a branch within the History Channel. But if you're interested in a particular theme or a particular course, you could go for the BBC, or we've taken students on trips to Al Jazeera. There's other places that you can go as well. So you don't always have to think, okay, just the library. There are other things, archives, British museums, etc. Yeah? Okay, so when you do work experience, then talk about how it links to your course. But instead of work experience, I say that research projects are really interesting as well. So again, I'll use English. So you may decide to do some kind of book review. So you may be interested in a particular theme or a particular topic, and you decide that you're just going to do an independent review, reading the books, comparing them, see what's similar, what's different, analysing them, criticising them, and then write that up in some way. And that's just your personal research that you've done. Yeah? Tell me what subjects you're going for.
Medicine.
Medicine?
Yeah.
Okay. So apart from, if you were going to do some kind of research, give me a topic that you're interested in medicine at the moment.
Probably working with in paediatrics. So
Okay.
working with young children.
Yeah. And is there a particular illness or research or development that's taking place that you're aware of that you've heard
Zika
about?
virus is really big at the moment, so maybe researching into something like that. The causes, are there any way of like reducing the symptoms or reducing the or any way to slow it down basically, and are there any breakthroughs for cures yet or anything in that sort of field?
Perfect. So what you could do is, at the moment there's lots in the media because obviously it's a big thing in Brazil. Are we going to host the Olympics? Are we not? Are we going to have to cancel it? So you could do your own personal research project which looks into the history of the Zika virus across the world, current problems, think about how it's impacting a current issue like the Olympics, talk about possible vaccinations and how we can reduce it, and that could just be your own personal project. You didn't do it at school, you just did that outside of school. Yeah. So can you see that it's not just work experience? There are other ways where you can talk about how you've explored the subject outside of school, and be creative with that as well. Think of something that you're interested in and just something you can get involved in outside of school, either organised through a charity or campaign, or that you can just look into in more detail. Yeah. Okay, any more questions about how you talk about work experience or research before we move on? No? Okay. So just to summarise, these are things that I would encourage you to do before writing your personal statement. So make sure you research the course beforehand and see how it compares across the different universities. Emphasising academic motivation is really important, and some of the activities that we've just spoken about will help you to bring across your personal insights and examples in terms of how you've shown an interest or your motivation outside of school. You also need to demonstrate that you are somebody that has intellectual curiosity, especially if you're going for the top universities. So they want to see that you are someone that's interested in the subject, but also that as an individual you would be interesting to teach as well. So try to make sure that the activities that you do help you to explore that intellectual curiosity. Another thing to be aware of, the reason I say show not tell, is because I want you to give examples of what those interests are, and you're demonstrating by being really specific, because that's what's going to help you to stand out. Another thing to bear in mind, some of the universities interview, so if you know you're going for a university that is likely to require an interview, yes, you write your personal statement, but you should have the interview in mind when you're writing your personal statement, because there may be things that they pull out of the personal statement that they want to discuss with you at the interview. So make sure that you are honest and that you're not putting anything in there that you can't talk about just to sound clever or interesting, but it's also got to be things that you want to discuss if you got to interview stage. Okay? So that's just a summary in terms of the approach. So what I want to do is go back to how you make use of your summer. So these are the 3 activities that I said are good activities to do. And these are the things to bear in mind when carrying out those activities. So just to reinforce, make sure when you go to the open days that you have questions, really specific questions to ask either to the course leaders or to the other students that you meet on the day. And just remember, it's not just open days, masterclasses, subject taster days and lectures as well, either at universities or other academic institutions. And there should be lots of examples on the different websites. Further reading, sometimes people really struggle in terms of what to read. Okay, I know everyone says further reading, but what exactly should I read? I would say start with a topic or a theme that interests you. And another thing that's really important is that you're reading it in a way that helps you to engage with what you're reading with. So don't just read it, think about what you agreed with, analyse it, criticise it, what was similar, what was different. Think about what you have to say and what you think about what you've read. So don't just read passively, make sure that you are an active reader, because that helps you to talk about it either in the personal statement or at interview if you get to that stage. Another thing, as we've just used in this example, current affairs is a good place to start in terms of further reading. Is there a topic in the news that you're interested in that maybe your book has been written about that you can explore in more detail? If you're still unsure of what to read, ask for recommendations either from the school, from somebody when you go to the open day who has studied that subject. You can also email the universities and ask them for reading lists if they don't already have them on their websites. And then the last thing with work experience is that you've got to make it interactive. So ask as many questions as possible. So I had an example of, it was a lecturer who I think lectures in veterinary medicine. Anyone interested in veterinary medicine? Okay, I know we've got some medics, but not necessarily veterinary. But what he was saying is, when he interviews the students, he asks them, when you went on work experience, did you observe any operations? And the person said yes. And they said, okay, what anaesthetics did they use? Didn't know. So when you're there, try to use it as an opportunity to get as much as possible. Okay, so what anaesthetics did you use? Why did you use that one? Why didn't you use another one? What are the side effects of that? What kind of impact will that have on the patient? So just trying to make sure that you're asking as many questions as possible. If you go maybe to a fashion show and you're working behind the scenes, thinking about why they made decisions about the maybe the way in which they structured that fashion show, why use particular materials over another one, why that particular location, have they done something there in the past? So asking as many questions as possible. And then the research I've already spoke about, so just make sure that if you do carry out any research that you are summarising your key learnings and that you're summarising what you've got from that particular research. Okay, so we've got a couple of minutes just before the end, and I just wanted to use that as time to just talk about the structure of the personal statement. So there's different ways in which you can approach it. You can approach it, most universities would expect the first kind of like 2 paragraphs or 60% to be about the subject interest and the subject motivation. And then the end bit to be about maybe your extracurricular activities or things that you're involved in at school, like debating and additional things about your hobbies. If you're applying to top universities, or especially Oxford and Cambridge, they would usually say about 80% is about your academics, and then the 20% is just a little bit at the bottom. So bear that in mind. In terms of the approach, there are 2 different kinds of approaches. You can talk about a particular theme or issue, what we call a thematic personal statement. So if, for example, you said you're interested in globalization, you may decide to base most of your personal statement on the theme of globalization and talk about how you've explored it, what you look forward to finding out more about, how it links to your A-levels, and kind of just go with one particular thing. So it depends on you as a person. Other people may prefer to have different sections. So the first bit is about, okay, these are the topics I'm interested in finding out about when I go to university. This is how I've already explored those topics at school. This is how I've explored it in work experience. These are the hobbies that I do that are of interest and like to have it quite structured. So I would say explore the theme or approach that works best for you as an individual. Yeah? Hopefully that's useful, but if not, do feel free to ask additional questions. Alright, so just before we end, is there anything that I haven't covered or that you want to know more information about that I can answer questions on now? Yeah?
How valuable is a recommendation from someone who previously went to the university?
In terms of including that in your personal statement or just general recommendations?
Including that in the personal statement.
I would say it's valuable in terms of your own research. I haven't come across lots of people that have put that in their personal statement, so I don't think it's as common. I think maybe you can say when I went to this particular open day or I spoke to this person and their passion for it made me explore a bit more, and once I looked into it myself, because you always want it to come back to you. So you can talk about the influence that someone else has had, but I would try to keep it more focused on your personal motivation. Yeah? Good question. Okay, anybody else? Mm-hmm.
What happens if you exceed the character?
I think it actually stops. Yes, it cuts off and you can't write anymore. So do a draft in Word. Make sure that's another thing. Spell check. Doesn't have it on the UCAS website, so do your draft in Word before you transfer it into the UCAS form. What you'll find is you're probably going to have more information than you think. So write as much down as possible and then be quite ruthless about what you take out. Always asking those questions. Is it showing why me? Is it showing why this course? And then sometimes another thing that people find difficult is how to start it. So you may want to leave the beginning to the end, and then once you've written it, then there could have been something that you've written later on that is a good starting point that you can go back to at the end. Okay? Okay, any further questions? No? Excellent. Well, thank you for your interaction. I hope you found it useful. Just before you do go, I am around throughout the rest of the day if you have any other personal questions. And also, good luck with your application, and please do fill in the feedback form before you go.